Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hoping that everyone can be able to hear me. Good morning. Good morning. Okay. Uh so as you all saw the title of the video, we are going to have the conversation regarding the viral video of something that was pretty disturbing to me. It involved an apostle by the name of Monique Hall. So let me give you a little bit of a backstory. Uh, Apostle Monique Hall was a visiting pastor at another church in Atlanta, Georgia. They had paid for her services to come in and preach. And I'm just going to let you all hear it for yourself. I'm going to actually play the video. I'm going to play the audio. YouTube has been pretty peculiar in regards to actually playing video. So I'm just going to play the audio so you all can hear it. That don't want God for you. And I'm going to say this right here, no pun intended, just for you guys. But I will have to say, I can't come in a place and not be a prophet of God. But that's what's happening to the body of Christ with the music. We have people, musicians, that lead and don't want the word. But I will tell you something, the word gift that God gave you is for him and his people. And so what is happening in the body, I know some of y'all are looking at me crazy, but I'm going to tell you something. That's just how I work. I'm telling you, I don't come and show nothing because I would do it even in my church if I had to. But when you are praying for somebody, we see it all over. I travel all over the world. As soon as the preacher starts preaching, we get up and leave, and then we're going to get something to eat and drink. I would decree and declare that the musicians will be saved all over the world. You see, we're so jealous that it's the body of Christ now. We don't want to check me. We don't want to check nobody. We don't want to check musicians. Because everybody get paid, right? I will pay you and still rebuke you. Should we play something? You okay? Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. Can you play something? Can you play? I'm going to tell you something. So you don't want to play. Hey, can you go play this? I don't even think you understand what you just did, young man. And who was in your presence. Wow. But I will give you 48 hours to repent. My God. My God. 48. Go around, baby. In the way. 48. Please, let me get his name before I hope y'all are recording this. This makes what I've been speaking true. Woo! So let me give you a description of the video. Okay, so the apostle by the name of Monique Hall is preaching. And if you have ever been a speaker at a church, or if you've been a musician at a church, a lot of times, and I'm going to speak from a musician standpoint because I have played the piano at a church, I've played the keyboard at a church, so I already know this. You're playing and playing and playing during praise and worship while the choir is singing. Even you're playing soft music throughout some of the prayers, like devotional.
So there's a lot of times that you are tired and you want to go on a break, or you want to drink some water, or you need to go to the restroom. So sometimes while the pastor is preaching, you will excuse yourself, you'll leave, and you'll come back. And this is what I am assuming is what happened. And the reason why I say that is because when she's speaking to the organist, she asked the organist, is she okay? And if you see the video, the organist is actually pregnant, the keyboardist, because it's not an organist, a keyboard. She's pregnant. And she said, are you okay? And you can hear her reply back to her and say, yes, I just need to go to the bathroom. She said, okay, 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 okay. And then she goes on this tirade about, how the musicians are being paid, but, they have to leave. And the minute that the pastor is preaching and she is praying that all musicians are saved, and she's traveled all over the world, and they need to understand God's word. I understood all of that. I understood that. However, the part that bothered me, because you could tell, even though the video is very pixelated, you could tell that it was a young man that was playing the drums. He was a young man. And the organist is playing. Now, I don't know if you all know too much about musicians and playing in the church, but it wasn't, she asked the drummer to begin playing. There wasn't much of anything for him to play. Like, I kid you not, I'm saying to myself, okay, the organist played, I want to say two chords, and she asked the drummer to play, and he had not started to play yet. And what I'm assuming is the reason why he hadn't started to play yet, because the actual organist had not played enough for him to come up with the beat yet. And again, if you are a musician, you understand exactly what I'm saying. The organist is basically like the melody. They, or in not even that, even if someone is singing, they're singing, the organist or the pianist begins to play, and they play the chords, and they're literally like the harmony and melody are coinciding together. And as they continue to sing, and it's the organist or pianist continues to play, then later on comes in the other musicians and the other instruments, because they have to set the tone initially. Anybody who knows music knows that. And if she is who she says that she is, and I believe that she's traveled all over the world preaching and this, that, and the other, she would know that, because she's a pastor. My issue was when she made the comment about rebuking him. And then she said, oh, so you don't want to play? Because you have to realize he's a young man. He's 17 years old. He was a young man. Even when you look at this pixelated picture, this pixelated video, you could tell that was a young man. You could tell that. Spirit, God should have told you that that was a young man. And that's when I had an issue. Because I'm going to be honest with you, the things that she said, it was a couple of things I just was like, I'm feeling a little ego. When she was preaching, I kid you not, instantly I was like, I'm not feeling the Holy Spirit. I'm feeling very much ego in this conversation. But I kept listening, because a lot of times, not just we as church people, but Black people will take a little piece of something and run with it, and it be a narrative out here that this Black pastor is condemning this young man, and we're just going off of a headline instead of listening to the video in its entirety. And then as I listened to it, and what got me was the whole 48 hours. You have 48 hours. You have 48 hours. What is that young man's name? I need his name. You have 48 hours to repent. I don't even think that you even know who you are in the presence of. And that's when I had an issue. That's when I had an issue. Let me tell you something. I have been called prophetess a few times in my life, and it always rubbed me the wrong way. And you know that is a title that people are proud of. People hold to a certain regard in the church. For me, the title of prophetess may not be the same definition of prophetess to you. Now, I'm going to speak about my experience because I can't tell you how to experience the Lord or how to experience people in his house. The people that I have come into contact with who are prophets and prophetess in my real life, not on social media, but in my real life, have had a habit of discrediting, maligning, hurting, and bullying people in the church because of that title. Now, I'm not saying all people do that. What I'm saying is in regards to my experience. And you know what? When I do feel more comfortable, I probably will do a few story times about my time in the church and things that took place while I was in the church. And I feel like men and women of God should have a certain responsibility to not preach in ego because you don't know what another person is going through. And if you are really who you say you are, and you test in the spirit, by the spirit, because that's biblical. That's biblical. You should know that what you were saying was not of the Lord. So then on the video, you see the young man get up, you see another man walking towards him, and she proceeds to keep going and say how she needs his name and he had 48 hours. And then she begins to say about he don't even know who he in the presence of. So the video goes viral. And there is an interview on Dr. Larry Reed Live's page. And I wanted to go ahead and do a video on this as soon as it came out. But I had a lot of stuff going on yesterday. And I just had been in prayer, just in prayer. But God allowed me to be able to listen to that interview. And I'm glad that I did, because I learned a lot from that interview. So we find out the backstory on the church, on this young man, on his family, what took place, everything. So the young man who was the drummer, he was playing the drums at the church. The young man's name is Josiah Majors. Josiah Majors. That's biblical right there. That name Josiah. His dad is actually a minister. His dad is a single father raising his children, had been raising his son Josiah since he was 2 years old. Him and Josiah's mother are divorced. So this is a single father who was in the ministry and raising his children up to be ministers in their own right, in their own ministry. And this pastor has his own church and building, and he doesn't preach all the time in his church. So what he does is he rents out his building to other pastors and other churches so that they can be able to see what it feels like to actually have a building under their umbrella and preach to larger congregations and all of that. So he rents out his building. So there is a, a minister that he rents out the building to. In that particular Sunday, this was her program that she was putting on. And she had actually commissioned for Apostle Monique Hall to come in to the church and to speak. So this wasn't even the pastor that was preaching. This was a visiting pastor that was preaching. So then that gave me a little bit more backstory. I was like, oh wow, so this not even her church member. This is, she a visitor talking to, somebody who attends this church like that. So I'm like, wow. Okay, so that gives you more backstory. And the father begins to talk about his experience in the church, and so many times he has wanted to leave the church alone in its entirety because he feels like not only is he being attacked, but now his son is being attacked. So he goes on to say that something similar happened to him, where a pastor was calling him out because they had like a difference of opinions, and the said pastor rebuked him in front of everyone. And then a little later on, his daughter passed away in a car accident. And ever since then, his son, he had a total of 3 children. One of his children passed away, which was the daughter. He has 2 sons left. One of the sons, due to what happened to him and that car accident, left the ministry. The other son, which is his last son that plays the drums, that's the only person that's left with him fighting the good fight of the Lord. So you can just imagine probably how much that conversation from that pastor triggered that young man. So then you later find out in the midst of the interview that the young man who was playing the drums, he was actually in the car with his sister when they got into the car accident and she was killed. Can you imagine how this 17-year-old young man feels and felt? And then for this pastor to come at him like that. And like I said, I felt like there was a whole lot of ego in that in that sermon. That's just me. That's just me. And that's how I felt. And so the father goes on to say, I did not even want this to pick up and grow legs. I wanted to just handle it. He said his son came home. He didn't seem like himself. He seemed distraught. Of course, he's hearing different things from other people at the church about what happened. This father went on to say that he's taught his son not even to charge people to play for the Lord, because if that's your gift, that's your ability, that's what God gave you, you're going to play for the Lord. You don't play for people. So this young man don't even charge people to play. He said that because it's his aunt that is renting out the building from his father, he said that she asked if he could be able to play for her church. And he went ahead and he said, okay. So here it is. He plays for his dad's church during a certain time. Then he plays for another church during a certain time. So this boy's been on the drums for hours At this point, he literally been playing ever since the morning. Now we it's a whole nother sermon with a visiting pastor, and we 3 pastors in. That young man is tired. And that's what the father said. He said his son at that time had been playing on the drums like 7 or 8 hours, so he needed a break. And his own father wasn't even there at the visiting pastor's program, because I'm quite sure that he was tired. He had been preaching all morning. So when his son gets home, he finds out what happens. He watches the video because, as you heard Apostle Monique say, I hope you all are recording this. I want this recorded. Because she actually had this video and was posting it and sharing it to people and trying to use it as a tool to teach a lesson, because that ego up in her. Let's call a thing because of the ego that was within her. So she goes on, and imagine a father watching this and knowing what your son has been through. So he said that he went to the aunt, spoke to the aunt. The aunt explained what took place. And of course, he wanted to be connected with Apostle Monique and her husband. He said that the woman was absolutely disgusting to him, doubled down on her rebuking threats. Doubled down on it. And so then he said to himself, okay, well, maybe let me speak to her husband. Let me reach out to her husband. Let's do this man to man. Said that the husband was equally as nasty and disgusting, and that their congregation started to attack him, call him out of his name, call him very disturbing very disturbing name calling. You just don't, you in the house of the Lord, it's just certain things you don't call people. And I was just taken aback when I was listening to that interview. I was like, I can't believe this is how church, but you know what? I can believe it, because this is exactly how church people act. Exactly how church people act. Exactly how church people act. And people wonder why people have strayed away from the church. And that's very much part of the reason why, because people do not feel comfortable in the house of the Lord anymore. They don't feel vulnerable in the house of the Lord anymore, because they feel like they feel like they are constantly being ridiculed and constantly being judged. But this is the thing. You're supposed to be able to go into the house of the Lord for refuge, for strength, for comfort. And people are not getting that anymore. So, Pastor Reed, Dr. Larry Reed, had this interview, and it was so good. It was really, really good. If you go to Dr. Larry Reed's page, it is Larry Reed Live on YouTube. The name of the video is Musician Rebuked and Then Kicked Out. 2/21/23 is the date on the video. Go and watch that interview. It's really good. And what I enjoyed about it was, not even after his full story was being told, but just as he was speaking, the Spirit moved for Dr. Reed to take up a love offering for this young man. Now, this is a young man who has dedicated his life to Christ, dedicated his life to the church, who plays relatively for free all over Atlanta. Dr. Reed took up a love offering for this young man. And I mean, so many people, there were thousands of people watching that interview. And I mean, thousands of people just started to begin to donate to this young man. And what was so beautiful to me is that I felt that was that extra boost that family needed, because you could tell that they just were tired. They were tired of the nonsense, and they were tired of fighting with people of God, because all they want to do is just show love. And oh my goodness, listen, like I explained earlier, I have always had an issue with with those titles, prophet and prophetess. Always. But even that interview humbled me to show me that regardless of, because that young man could have easily been like, you know what, I'm done with the church. I never want to deal with the church again, because that's embarrassing. That video went viral. Okay. He still stayed true to his purpose. And I respected that on so many levels. And I had to say to myself, and I asked God to help me. I was like, Lord, help me to not have this feeling in my heart when it comes to those titles. Because guess what? Whenever I meet someone and they're like, oh, I'm a prophetess, I'm a prophet, I instantly kind of cringe inside, because I'm going off of what my experience with those particular spirits have been in the past. And see, that's one thing. God will sometimes put your past right up in your face to teach you how to deal with it differently. And that's exactly what happened to me in the middle of that interview. When I tell you, I was in shock. It was a couple of things that kind of came full circle for me in that interview. So, you know, this was uh, a pretty short video. I just wanted to come straight on, talk to you all. Uh, make sure that you all are watching your stocks. Remember, I was telling you all last week about Tesla, and I said it's going to drop. I said, let's see if it's going to drop under 200. It dropped under 200, exactly like I said. Listen, you're going to make some money over here if you listen to me. So, okay, I said exactly about Tesla. And what did I say about DraftKings? I told you all that it was going to go up. Now, DraftKings is going to level out and come back down, and it is dropping, and it will continue to drop. It's probably going to drop anywhere between the $18 and $17 range. And it's going to pick back up around the NBA season. So yeah. All righty. Well, thank you all so much to all my bottle poppers over here at Mimosa Chronicles. The proper lady gave us that name, bottle poppers. I think that's kind of cute, bottle poppers. Yeah, I kind of like it. If y'all come up with something different, go ahead and put it in the chat or in the comment section. Thank you so much for coming on. I know it's super early. I didn't expect anyone to be in the chat, but thank you to the ones who are. And this is Mimosa signing off. I will be back on a little bit later. I still have to give y'all part 2 of Hot Pocket that's coming up as well. So thank you all so much for joining me this morning. Consider it your midweek devotion. All right. Thank you all so much for coming on. Have a great day.